listening to my favorite talk show, The Weekly Show with Aditya.
This is episode 166 on the 7th of February 2020. Let's talk about a skill which can neither be classified as an hobby nor as a skill. It is expected that an individual has this skill inherited. But despite having this skill, it's not enough to land one a job or be employed, as the definition of employment has gone about a tremendous change in the contemporary times. It does not come in the narrow definition of having a career, but this field does demand a bit of creativity and experimentation. But still, despite all this expectation, it's still not in that usual definition of productivity and adding to the GDP of a nation, yet it's crucial for an individual's self development. It's not the individual who decides whether it's an hobby or it's a profession, but the others surrounding the individual who decide that whether this profession can get some kind of monetary satisfaction or not. As getting the monetary satisfaction is all that is talked about in the contemporary times. These kinds of discussion can often be frustrating to an individual who wants to go beyond the stereotypical ideas of job and employment and not be affected by whether one should call this a job or one is employed through this or is this an hobby? There are a couple of professions that can be a part of this, but while other professions are being taken to the next level in terms of traditional and modern development techniques, and with the help of softwares and artificial intelligence, this particular profession is far removed and it does not require any kind of artificial intelligence to influence it. And yet, despite the supposed maturity of the human civilization, this particular profession hobby remains at the bottom of the pyramid if one presumes the pyramid to be an inverted pyramid. And yet, most individuals feel that they can get a hold of this profession and may not need any kind of skilled training. One can take the example of authors like Ashwin Sanghi, Amish Tripathi, and others who were not writers by choice but by force when they became bored of their stereotypical 9 to 5 jobs. They decided to venture into this hobby called writing. There are a very few individuals who want to be writers right from the moment they start their schooling. That's a very small percentage that cannot be quantified. It's quite disturbing that even the definition of a successful author is not how the author influenced the individuals or how the author made an effort to write the book, but by the cliched definition of how many books of that author were sold. It's a slightly different task from journalism. While a journalist gets to write every day or gets at least an opportunity to write some kind of idea or report every day, for an author, producing a book can take up to 6 to 12 months. And yet, what do? We respect an app developer, not the individual who writes a book. But then this kind of debate is subjective and not often concrete. Now the question comes, are individuals born authors or can they be trained? There is no set answer to this question. it's difficult to qualify and quantify an individual as a born author, because even if a 7-year-old writes something, nobody will take them seriously. So be it in the contemporary times 20 years ago or 100 years ago, we never took a 7-year-old who did anything seriously, even if they sang, they danced, they wrote a piece of poetry, they drew, they were artists. And yet, for these professions, one cannot train a person. It's a natural thing compared to making them or forcefully making them app developers, scientists, or engineers, which have to be drilled in an individual's mind. And that is why most authors usually come from the fields of management and engineering, because they are so put off by the tiring hours that they turn to a profession which is still hard work, yet the deadlines and the pressure are reduced in a huge manner. And yet, the skill required for an author or a good author is someone who can, through their work of writing, be it poetry or artistry or even writing a novel, it's about the imagery which they write, the imaginary written, the written word. If the reader is able to visualize the text written, that means the author has done a good job in making the reader interested in that piece of work. As in contemporary times, it's all about visualization and imagery. And that is why applications are taking over books, especially in the field of education. But writing is one field which has not been affected by the penetration of technology. If 100 years ago one needed a pen and paper to pen down their ideas, which gradually shifted to a typewriter, and now in contemporary times a computer. But for an author, they are not influenced by such technologies. These technologies, which include the typewriter and the computer, only aid in the author's idea. The idea still has to come from the author. The only difference being that an individual has shifted from a pen and paper style of writing towards the typewriter and eventually towards a digital device in the form of a computer. Yet all these devices will fail if the writer's own imagination doesn't come into play. While in other fields, those devices will help the individual create a better imagery. For example, it could be graphic design. Whether an author is the premier profession of an individual is often a subjective discussion. There is an unwritten rule that even if an individual wants to be an author, they need to have a backup profession through which they can earn their livelihood so that they can enjoy the basic necessities of life. Nothing gives anyone more satisfaction than creating that piece of art and compiling it into that entity called a book. Whether should an author be classified as an hobby or a full-time profession, I leave this thought to the august listeners that I have. The main event of the Junior Cricket World Cup has been decided. It will be the clash of the subcontinent giants. It will be India's Junior World Cup cricket team versus Bangladesh's Junior World Cup cricket team. And if in a multi-nation tournament two teams are able to make it to the main event or the finals of that tournament, then it means they have done everything right to make it to the tournament, going by how the the particular tournament is scheduled. Looking at how the group stages were constructed, there were three teams per group. In India's group were New Zealand and Japan, and a slip up in either of these matches would have caused the team a place in the quarter final. So every match the teams had to be on the money, and this is what these two teams did. And now each of these teams are one step away from winning the gold. For Bangladesh, it's the first ever chance to win a world championship, and for them it will be a huge achievement irrespective of whether it comes from the junior team or the senior team. And Bangladesh, like Pakistan, has the habit of drafting 17, 18-year-olds in their team. So it won't be a surprise if a few players from this Bangladesh under 19 Junior World Cup team are drafted into the senior team without a second thought from the board and the team management and the selectors. This position is often a win-win situation for the Bangladesh team, as drafting 16, 17-year-olds in their team means that this individual can play up to at least 15 years and make a name for themselves. And with the T20 World Championship around, they need 16, 17-year-olds to make sure that the team does well in that particular championship, while making sure that the individuals who were once upon a time drafted at the age of 17, 18, who are now in their mid 30s, get a subtle warning that if you don't perform, you will be phased out of the team despite being an icon for the past 16 to 17 years. On the other hand, for the Indian team, there is nothing much to lose. Reaching a final itself is a huge achievement, especially for a tournament scheduled in such a manner that after every 2 years, there are 11 different players for that particular team, and no player plays more than two World Cups. So looking at the way the Bangladesh team has also made it to the finals of this particular championship, won't be easy for the Indian team to walk over that team. More often than not, be it in any sport, the Bangladesh doesn't have much to look forward to beyond cricket, and they have some kind of a respect in football. An India-Bangladesh match doesn't receive that kind of a publicity as an India-Pakistan match does, or an India-England match does, or an India-Australia match does, irrespective of the championship, be it in the juniors or the seniors. At this point, either of the teams are poised to win the championship. It's all about one mistake, one tiny slip up on either side, which can ruin the moment for India or Bangladesh. And it will be a great way to top off the weekend, irrespective of which team wins this particular tournament. India Bangladesh Championship Junior World Championship isn't the only tournament to look forward to in this weekend. After making a mockery of Netherlands by defeating them 2-0 in their maiden appearance in the Pro Hockey League Championship, can the Indian team carry forward this momentum and also continue their good form as they face another tough European team in the form of Belgium? The owners once again will be on the seniors in Harmanpreet Singh, Rupinder Pal Singh, the captain in Manpreet Singh, as well as the youngsters in Hardik Singh and the others, and along with the seasoned keeper in Shrijesh. Will this tournament receive the same kind of publicity and viewership in a already crowded weekend clash, as UFC is also coming back this Sunday. So it will be interesting as to how the viewers tune their interest when they watch all these matches ranging from UFC to hockey to cricket as well as some football matches, and in an Olympic year where teams are grappling to qualify, where individuals as well as team are grappling to qualify for the Olympics. Hockey is one of the few tournaments which are not influenced by the conditions. And while the points in this tournament and the performance in this tournament may not get the same kind of reaction as it will if the hockey team does a similar job in the Olympics, it's still important as far as taking the confidence and the match experience in the Olympics is concerned. That is why this tournament has been smartly scheduled, and it's a good job by the Hockey India to allow their players to debut in this tournament so that they can prepare for all the teams they will be facing in the eventual litmus test, that is the Olympics. And even if India managed to reach the finals of this particular hockey league championship and win a bronze medal, it won't get the same kind of respect if the Indian team reaches the finals of an Olympics match. And once again, a few pseudo experts will make it their right to compare the current hockey team to the past pseudo greats and bring this often unnecessary word in hockey, how hockey has become easier with the emergence of the AstroTurf compared to the grass turf those so-called greats used to play on. But unlike cricket, hockey has nothing to do with all this modernism talk. Hockey as a sport remains the same, be it 1970s or 2020. And yet the benchmark remains that if a hockey team has to be declared great, they have to win at least a gold in Olympics as well as win the world championship. But for me, the way they started playing in this particular tournament, the confidence they showed to convert penalty corner, which was often seen as an Achilles heel for the current team, irrespective of what happened in the past and which hockey team won a gold medal in the Olympics or won the world championship. For me, this current bunch of players has already made it to the top of my list as far as the hockey team is concerned. While we can be in awe about the teams of the 70s and the 80s, their skill level is nothing compared to the highly skilled and talented team that we see on the turf today, irrespective of the fact that the video umpire has changed the nature of declaring a goal as well as the advent of AstroTurf, that is the artificial turf. Such interferences won't change the nature of the hockey as a sport. The one day leg of the India New Zealand tournament didn't exactly start on the plan as the Indian had envisaged. After scoring nearly 350 runs in a 50 over match at 7 runs per over, one thought that the Indians had the game in the bag at least at 70%. But New Zealand, riding on a wave of luck and sympathies, and trying not to be influenced by the 5-0 effect of the T20 championship, chased down the target of 350 with disdain. But then, as Virat Kohli said, the one-day format of the game is not really crucial to the plans in a year where only the Test and the T20 format is on their plate. So a win or a loss here is not going to affect their plans going into the future. One could see by the facial expressions on Kohli that he was not perturbed when the runs were coming from the New Zealand batters, as he was not concerned about the result of that particular match. If the captain displays such an outright attitude that he is not concerned by the win or the loss, then for every player it's just another match. Though it was a personal milestone for a few players who now have cemented their place in the team, people had questioned Shreyas Iyer's ability to make 100 at that often debated number 4 position. Maybe not on a team level, but on a personal level, Rahul and Iyer made their presence felt. So at the end of the match, it was the performance by the vice captain, the stand-in